Can landlords refuse to renew your lease? Ever pondered over this question? Today, we're going to unravel this mystery together. We'll tackle this topic head-on, striving to understand whether landlords can, in fact, refuse to renew a lease. It's crucial to arm ourselves with knowledge about tenants' rights and learn how to navigate such situations. So, let's get ready to delve into the nitty-gritty, the fine print, the heart of the matter. Let's dive into a real-life story to understand this better. Meet Joe, a happy tenant who loved his apartment in the heart of the city. Joe had called this apartment his home for years. The convenience of the location, the charm of the old building, and the memories he built within its walls made it more than just a place to live. It was an integral part of his life. One day after returning home from a long day at work, Joe found an envelope slipped under his door. Expecting it to be another routine letter from his landlord, maybe about maintenance or a reminder about the rent, he casually opened it. However, upon reading the first few lines, his heart sank. It was a notice from his landlord stating that his lease would not be renewed. The words "lease not renewed" echoed in his mind, creating a whirlpool of confusion. He had always been a good tenant, always paid his rent on time, and never caused any trouble. He had even invested his time and money into maintaining the apartment, making it a better place to live. Why then, he wondered, would his landlord refuse to renew his lease? Joe's initial reaction was disbelief. He read the letter several times, hoping that he had misunderstood, but the message remained the same. His lease would not be renewed, and he would have to vacate the apartment that had been his home for so long. The disbelief soon turned into frustration and worry. Joe had never thought he'd have to go through the process of finding a new place again, especially not so suddenly. He had built his life around this apartment, and the thought of leaving it behind was distressing. Joe was taken aback. He wondered, can my landlord really do this? He felt helpless, but he knew he had to find answers. And so Joe's journey to understanding the complexities of lease renewals began, a journey that would not only help him navigate his current predicament, but also equip him with knowledge that would come in handy in the future. So, can a landlord refuse to renew a lease? The answer isn't as simple as yes or no. To understand why, let's dive into the world of lease renewals. First off, a lease renewal is similar to hitting the refresh button on a lease agreement. When a lease expires, both the tenant and the landlord have the option to renew, essentially agreeing to extend the lease for another fixed term. Now, you might be wondering, why would a landlord not want to renew a lease? Well, there's a multitude of reasons. Perhaps they're looking to sell the property. It's no secret that properties without tenants are often easier to sell. They might also want to move into the property themselves. After all, situations change and they might need to reclaim their space. Then there's the possibility that they want to rent to someone else. Maybe they've found a tenant who's willing to pay more, or they might simply prefer someone else for various reasons. It's not always about the money. It could be about finding a tenant that's a better fit for the property or the neighborhood. However, it's crucial to remember that landlords can't just refuse to renew a lease for any reason. And that's where laws come into play. Lease laws vary greatly based on location. Some places have strict regulations that protect tenants from sudden non-renewals, while others lean more towards the landlord's freedom to choose. Some laws might require the landlord to provide a legitimate reason for not renewing the lease, while others don't. In short, whether a landlord can refuse to renew a lease hinges on a host of factors, from their personal circumstances to legal considerations. It's a complex web of reasons and regulations, making it a far cry from a simple yes or no answer. But what about Joe? Let's get back to his story. Joe was in a fix, but he decided to take control of the situation. He found himself on the precipice of a lease non-renewal, and instead of being a passive participant, he chose to be proactive. First, he started by doing some homework. He researched his rights as a tenant, delving into the local and state laws surrounding lease renewals. He wanted to know if there were any specific circumstances under which a landlord could refuse to renew a lease. He discovered that while a landlord generally has the right to not renew a lease, there are exceptions, such as retaliation or discrimination. Joe didn't stop there. He reached out to a local tenants' rights organization. They provided him with a wealth of information and resources. They explained to him that, depending on his location, he might have additional protections. For example, some cities have rent control laws that limit a landlord's ability to refuse to renew a lease without a valid reason. Having armed himself with knowledge, Joe elected to consult with a lawyer. This was to ensure he understood his rights correctly and to get advice on the best course of action. His lawyer pointed out some interesting clauses in his lease agreement that Joe hadn't noticed before. He then took a structured approach to handle the situation. He documented every interaction with his landlord, maintaining a record of emails, letters, and rent receipts. He also kept a log of any issues or repairs in the apartment. He knew that if things escalated, this evidence could be crucial. Joe made it a point to communicate effectively with his landlord. He expressed his desire to renew the lease and asked for reasons behind the landlord's decision. He did this in a respectful and professional manner, avoiding any confrontational or aggressive behavior. In short, Joe didn't let the situation overwhelm him. He took steps to understand his rights, sought advice, communicated effectively, and documented everything. Through it all, he maintained his dignity and composure. Joe's story had a twist, but what happened next? Stay tuned to find out. We'll delve deeper into the outcome and the lessons learned in the next segment. After a nerve-wracking period, Joe finally found a resolution. And what a resolution it was. Joe, like many tenants, was initially at a loss when his landlord refused to renew his lease, but he didn't let that deter him. Instead, he took it as an opportunity to learn about his rights and discover the legal avenues available to him. Joe sought legal advice, and with the help of a knowledgeable attorney, he was able to challenge the landlord's decision. And guess what? He won. The court ruled that the landlord's refusal was unjustified and ordered a lease renewal. Quite a victory, wouldn't you say? But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here. It's not just about Joe's win, it's about the lessons we can glean from his experience. The first lesson is the importance of understanding your rights as a tenant. Every tenant has rights and landlords have obligations. Knowing these rights and obligations can make all the difference when disputes arise. The second lesson is the value of seeking legal advice. You don't have to face these issues alone. Legal professionals can provide guidance and help navigate the complex world of tenant rights and landlord responsibilities. They can be your allies in ensuring that your rights are upheld. The third lesson is perseverance. Joe didn't back down. He stood up for his rights and he persisted. He didn't let the fear of the unknown or the complexities of the legal system deter him. Instead, he faced the challenge head-on and came out victorious. Lastly, let's not forget the power of knowledge. Joe's story underscores the importance of being informed. Knowledge is power, and in situations like these, it can be your greatest ally. Joe's story gives us crucial insights into the question we started with. It's a reminder that yes, landlords can refuse to renew a lease, but that doesn't mean it's always legal or justified, and it certainly doesn't mean you don't have options. So, arm yourself with knowledge, seek legal advice when necessary, and stand up for your rights. It's been a journey understanding if landlords can refuse to renew your lease. We've learned that the answer is not as clear-cut as we might like, and it can hinge on several factors. Throughout our discussion, we've touched on the reasons why a landlord might not renew a lease. These can range from simple reasons like the landlord wanting to use the property for personal use to more complex ones such as the tenant violating terms of the lease. But remember, it's not all one-sided. We also delved into tenants' rights and the protections they have under the law. Tenants are not without recourse, and there are legal protections in place to ensure they are not left in the lurch. It's crucial to be aware of these rights and to exercise them when necessary. It's also important to remember that while landlords do have the right to refuse a lease renewal, they must do so in a manner that is legal and fair. Lastly, we underscored the importance of seeking legal advice. Navigating the world of leases can be tricky, and having a legal expert on your side can make all the difference. Whether you're a tenant facing a lease non-renewal or a landlord considering your options, getting legal advice is a smart move. Remember, knowledge is power. Stay informed and protect your rights as a tenant.